cold wind moved through the empty city streets, carrying tiny flakes of snow that sparkled under the flickering lights. Evan pulled his jacket tighter around his shoulders as he walked home after another long shift at the repair shop. His boots crunched softly on the icy ground. It was almost midnight and the streets were silent, too silent. Most people were inside, safe and warm, while he walked alone through the freezing dark. He was tired. His hands were numb and his breath came out in pale clouds. But then, just as he turned the corner near the old subway entrance, he saw something that made him stop. A figure stood by the steps, shaking. She was small, thin, and barefoot. The light above her flickered, showing pale skin that shimmered faintly like silver glass. For a moment, Evan thought it was just his imagination, but then she lifted her head. Her eyes caught his breath. They were large and glowing, soft blue with faint golden rings inside. She wasn't human. He could tell immediately. The shape of her ears, the strange patterns running along her neck, the faint hum that came from her skin. It was something he had never seen before. She was clearly an alien and she was freezing. People had seen strange things after the war between worlds, but no one expected to see one of them here, alone, barefoot in the cold. Evan looked around. The street was empty. No one else seemed to notice her. She was hugging her arms tightly, trembling. Her feet were raw and red from the cold ground. Evan's first thought was to walk away. He wasn't rich and his life was hard enough. Helping someone like her could mean trouble. The government still didn't trust aliens after the conflict. Anyone caught harboring one could get arrested. But as he looked at her again, his heart twisted. She looked so fragile, so lost. Slowly, he walked closer. "Hey," he said softly, his voice gentle so he wouldn't scare her. She flinched at the sound but didn't move away. He took off his jacket, but she shook her head weakly. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Then Evan looked down at her feet. She wasn't wearing anything, just thin, torn fabric around her ankles. Without thinking too much, he crouched and untied his boots. His fingers were stiff from the cold. He slipped them off and placed them gently near her feet. "Here," he said, forcing a small smile. "They're old, but they're warm." The girl stared at the boots like she didn't understand. Then she looked up at him with wide eyes. Her gaze was full of confusion and something deeper, fear, maybe hope. Evan gestured again. "Go on. Take them." She slowly knelt, touching the boots with trembling hands. When her fingers brushed the leather, a faint blue glow ran along the seams as if the boots recognized her touch. Evan blinked, startled, but said nothing. She slid her feet inside and the glow vanished. For a few seconds, silence hung between them. Then she looked up at him again and whispered something in a soft, melodic voice. The words were strange, not from any human language, but somehow Evan understood their meaning. "Thank you." He smiled, though he wasn't sure she could read expressions. "You're welcome," he said quietly. She blinked, her eyes shimmering with tears that froze almost instantly on her cheeks. Then she took a slow step backward. Evan thought she would say something more, but before he could speak again, her body shimmered and vanished into thin air. The air where she had stood still hummed faintly, like static after a lightning strike. Evan stood there frozen, staring at the empty spot. His heart pounded. It couldn't be real. Maybe he was just exhausted, maybe his mind was playing tricks. But when he looked down, the footprints were still there, small, glowing faintly blue in the snow. He picked up his jacket and walked home in silence, barefoot now, the cold biting into his skin. Yet somehow he didn't feel regret. There was a strange warmth inside him, stronger than the chill. When he reached home, he sat by the window, staring at the stars. Somewhere out there he thought she was safe, and he didn't know why, but he felt that this wasn't the end. Something big had just begun. Something that would change everything. By dawn, the whole world would know his name. The morning came quietly, but something about it felt strange. Evan woke up to a pale light coming through his window, softer than usual. The city outside was silent, not peaceful, but expectant, like it was waiting for something to happen. He rubbed his eyes and stared at his bare feet. The memory of last night came rushing back. The freezing street, the alien girl, her trembling voice, and the moment she disappeared. He looked out the window again. Snow covered everything, but in the distance near the old subway entrance, something was glowing faintly blue. His heart raced. He quickly dressed, pulled on an old pair of shoes, and stepped outside. The cold bit at his face as he hurried through the empty streets. When he reached the place where he had seen her, the glow was still there. On the ground lay his old boots, the ones he had given her. They were perfectly clean, not even a trace of dirt or snow on them. They looked new, almost shining. A soft light pulsed from them like a heartbeat. Evan bent down slowly and touched the leather. The boots were warm, almost alive. As his fingers brushed them, a sound echoed faintly inside his head, a soft whisper like distant music. He jerked his hand back, startled. Then he laughed nervously. "I'm losing it," he muttered. "I must be going crazy." But deep down he knew he wasn't. The glow, the warmth, it was real. He picked up the boots carefully and carried them home, hiding them under his coat. When he placed them on his table, the light faded away as if they were sleeping. Evan stared at them for a long time. Who was that girl? Why did she vanish like that? And what did those words mean? As the day went on, strange things began to happen. The news on TV spoke of mysterious lights appearing in the night sky, first over the ocean, then across several cities. People called them ghost flares, but scientists said they didn't match any natural pattern. Some thought it was a military experiment. Others said it was alien technology. Evan's heart pounded each time he saw the images. The lights moved in perfect formation, like ships traveling through the clouds. That evening, the glow returned. His room filled with a soft blue light. The boots on his table began to hum, vibrating gently. Evan took a step back. "What are you?" he whispered. Then, out of nowhere, a faint projection appeared above them, a flickering image like a hologram. It was her, the alien girl. She looked the same as before, except calmer now. Her silver skin shimmered and her hair floated around her like threads of light. She looked straight at him and spoke, her voice echoing inside his head instead of his ears. "Human," she said softly. "You gave warmth where others gave none." "I remember." Evan's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. Her expression softened. "My name is Lyra. You saved me when I was lost. I was hunted and my vessel was destroyed. You gave without asking. You gave warmth when I had nothing." Evan didn't know what to say. "I just gave you shoes," he said awkwardly. Lyra smiled faintly. "To you they were shoes. To me they were mercy. My people saw through my eyes. They saw what you did." Before Evan could respond, the image flickered. The air outside began to hum louder this time. A bright light flashed through his window. He ran to look outside and froze. The sky wasn't empty anymore. Dozens, no hundreds of lights filled the heavens, moving like stars in formation. They were massive, triangular ships floating above the clouds. The hum deepened into a steady rhythm, like the heartbeat of a giant. The city below was silent, every light flickering as if the world itself was holding its breath. Evan stepped back from the window, his chest tight. His phone buzzed. Emergency alerts, news notifications, frantic messages from coworkers. Mass UFO sighting over multiple regions. Unidentified vessels approaching atmosphere. Global alert level raised. He turned back to the glowing boots. Lyra's voice returned one last time, softer now. "They are coming. Do not fear. You will understand soon." Then the light vanished. The boots stopped glowing. The hum faded into silence. Evan stood there, trembling. Outside, sirens wailed. Fighter jets roared overhead. The television switched to breaking news. Unknown fleet detected above Earth's orbit. No hostile activity yet. He stared at the screen, his mind spinning. The girl, the ships, the message. None of this could be coincidence. He whispered to himself, "What did I do?" But deep down he already knew. Something far greater than him had begun the moment he offered his shoes to a barefoot stranger in the cold. And now the entire galaxy seemed to be answering. The night sky no longer belonged to Earth. It was filled with lights, silent, unmoving, and impossibly vast. People all across the world stared upward in disbelief. News channels screamed about invasion. Governments called emergency meetings, and soldiers filled the streets. But in the middle of all that chaos, one man sat quietly in his small apartment, staring out the window. Evan's reflection trembled against the glass, framed by the glow of alien ships that floated far above the clouds. They looked like silver blades cutting across the stars, each one miles wide. The world was terrified, but Evan couldn't feel fear anymore. He just felt confusion and something else. A strange heavy pull in his chest, as if the sky itself was calling his name. His phone buzzed nonstop, friends, coworkers, even unknown numbers. Everyone wanted to know what was happening. But Evan didn't have answers. All he had were 2 glowing boots and the memory of a girl who vanished in the snow. Suddenly, a loud knock shook his door. "Mr. Evan Carter?" a voice demanded. He opened it slowly. 3 soldiers stood outside, their uniforms marked with the global peace emblem. Behind them stood a tall man in a gray suit with dark glasses. "We need you to come with us," the man said flatly. Evan blinked. "What, why me?" The man showed him a small tablet. On the screen was a strange image, a recording of the alien girl, Lyra. Her hologram, exactly as he'd seen it in his apartment, repeating one sentence in her melodic voice. "Find the human who gave warmth." Evan's blood ran cold. "How did you get that?" "It was broadcast," the agent said. "Across every satellite, every frequency, and every language. They're looking for you." Before Evan could react, the soldiers guided him outside. The streets were empty, the air thick with tension. In the sky, one of the ships had descended lower, its metallic surface reflecting the city lights. It was silent but powerful, as if watching. The agent spoke quietly as they drove. "They haven't attacked. They haven't made any demands. All they've said is they want to meet the one who gave warmth. Do you have any idea what that means?" Evan shook his head slowly. I gave her my shoes." The man gave a short, humorless laugh. "Well, apparently that's enough to get the attention of an alien empire." They drove for hours until they reached the military base near the coastline. Helicopters buzzed overhead and rows of soldiers stood guard, their weapons ready, though everyone knew they were useless. In the middle of the runway, a massive shape hovered, an alien craft, sleek and silent. It glowed faintly blue like frozen lightning. As Evan stepped out of the vehicle, the alien ship lowered a ramp. Warm air flowed out, carrying a strange, sweet scent like flowers after rain. Everyone tensed, weapons raised, but Evan felt something else, a familiar presence. The air around him shimmered faintly. From the ship, 3 figures emerged. They were tall, their skin silver like moonlight, and their eyes glowed softly. One of them stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Human," she said in clear English, her voice calm. "Our princess seeks you." The crowd of soldiers murmured in disbelief. The agent beside Evan whispered, "Princess?" Evan swallowed hard. "Lyra," he said softly. The alien nodded. "Yes, she lives because of your kindness. She remembers the warmth you gave when others turned away. She commands us to honor the one who showed mercy." Evan stared, speechless. "I didn't know she was—" The alien raised her hand gently. "It does not matter what you knew. You acted without expecting return. To us, that is sacred." The soldiers looked confused. The general stepped forward. "Tell your people to stand down. You are causing panic across the planet." The alien tilted her head. "Our armada does not attack. We kneel." Her words echoed across the base. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then in the sky above, the massive ships began to move. Slowly, gracefully, they turned downward, lowering their edges until they seemed to bow toward the earth. A soft light spread across the clouds, wrapping the planet in a blue glow. People around the world gasped. Cameras captured it from every country, millions of viewers watching as an alien armada bent in silence before a small blue planet. Evan stood frozen. "They're bowing," he whispered. The alien nodded. "To you, to your kind, to humanity." The general turned to him, his face pale. "What did you do, Carter?" Evan couldn't answer. He didn't know. He just remembered a freezing night, a lost girl, and a pair of old boots. As the ships hovered, a voice filled the air. Not from speakers, not from any device, but from everywhere at once. It was Lyra's voice. "To the world that gave warmth to its enemy, we offer respect. To the man who gave when others turned away, we bow." Tears welled in Evan's eyes. He had never been a hero, never wanted to be. But at that moment, as the light washed over him and the world watched in stunned silence, he understood one thing. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness could echo across galaxies. And above the earth, 1,000 alien ships remained bowed, waiting for dawn. The night that had shaken the world turned into a dawn no one could forget. The alien ships still hovered like silver clouds above the horizon, glowing with quiet light. The world had gone silent. Governments didn't know what to do. News anchors whispered instead of shouted. And deep inside the coastal base, Evan sat in a small metal room, his heart still trying to understand what had happened. He had been given water, food, and a blanket, but sleep was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face again. Lyra, the alien girl who had whispered thank you before vanishing into the snow. Now she was out there somewhere commanding an entire armada that bowed to him. It didn't make sense. He was nobody, just a mechanic who worked night shifts and barely paid his rent. Why would a galaxy care about a man like him? The door opened. The man in the gray suit stepped in again, his expression tight. "Evan, they've sent a message," he said quietly. "They want to see you alone." Evan frowned. "See me? You mean the aliens?" The agent nodded. "Their leader called you the giver of warmth. They said they'll only speak if you're present." Evan laughed nervously. "You think I know what to say to them?" The man's voice softened. "No one does. But they're not here for us, they're here for you." Moments later, soldiers escorted him to the open runway. The sea wind whipped across the tarmac. The alien ship waited there, hovering a few feet above the ground. Its metallic surface rippled like liquid silver. As Evan stepped closer, the ramp extended slowly, glowing with soft blue light. He hesitated. "What if I don't come back?" The man in the suit looked uneasy. "Then, son, the world's already seen you as a hero. Make it count." Evan took a deep breath and walked up the ramp. Inside, the ship was silent, filled with a gentle hum that seemed to echo inside his bones. The walls glowed faintly, alive with flowing lines of light. It felt warm, welcoming even, not like the cold, hard metal he expected. Then a voice spoke behind him. "You kept your kindness even in the dark." He turned, and there she was. Lyra stood in the center of the chamber, her silver skin glowing brighter now. Her hair floated gently as if in water, and she wore a robe made of light and metal. A faint golden crest shimmered on her forehead, the mark of royalty. But her eyes were the same, soft, blue, and kind. Evan froze. You're real?" She smiled gently. "Was there ever a doubt?" He took a step closer. "Last time I saw you, you were shaking in the cold. I thought you were lost, hurt, just a stranger." Lyra's voice trembled slightly, though her tone remained calm. "I was lost. I had escaped from those who wanted power over my people. My ship crashed near your world. I thought I would die in the cold. But then you appeared. You did not ask who I was. You did not fear me. You gave warmth when I had none." Evan rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "They were just shoes." Lyra shook her head slowly. "No, they were hope. On my world, we are taught that mercy is rare in the void. But you human, you showed me that kindness does not need reason." Her voice grew softer. "When I returned to my fleet, I told them what you did. I showed them through my memories. They saw a human offering warmth to one of us without knowing she was a princess. They saw love where we expected fear." Evan looked around. "So that's why your ships are here?" "Because of that?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, we came not to rule, but to kneel. To show the galaxy that compassion still lives on this small blue world." Evan stared at her, stunned. "You're telling me all this, these ships, the whole fleet, came just because I helped you?" Lyra's lips curved into a gentle smile. "A single flame can light 1,000 stars." He didn't know what to say. His chest felt tight. "I'm not special," he murmured. "Anyone would have done the same." She stepped closer, her gaze soft but firm. "Would they?" He couldn't answer. Silence filled the chamber. Then Lyra extended her hand. "Come with me, Evan of Earth. The fleet wishes to honor you." The walls of the ship opened, revealing a massive window that looked out into the sky. Dozens of alien vessels floated in perfect formation, their lights pulsing gently in rhythm. One by one, they began to tilt forward, bowing again. Evan stood beside her, staring out at the impossible view. "They're really doing it," he whispered. Lyra nodded. "They bow not to a ruler, but to a heart that remembered warmth." For a moment, he said nothing. Then quietly he asked, "What happens now?" Lyra turned to him, her eyes reflecting the stars. "Now the galaxy will know your kind not by war, but by mercy." Evan felt small, standing there beside her, yet somehow larger than he had ever been. He didn't feel like a hero, just a man who had done what was right. And as the alien fleet bowed before the rising sun, the world below finally began to understand. Humanity's greatest power was never its weapons or its science. It was its heart. The air inside the alien ship shimmered like light through water. Evan stood frozen beside Lyra, his reflection glowing faintly in the polished walls. Outside, the entire armada remained motionless, still bowing toward Earth. The sight should have terrified him, but instead he felt a strange calm, as if he'd stepped into something bigger than himself. Lyra watched him quietly. "Your people must be afraid," she said softly, her voice echoing with that melodic tone that always made him listen. "We did not mean to frighten them." Evan turned to her, shaking his head slowly. "You didn't mean to. But you've got half the planet panicking. They think it's an invasion." Her eyes dimmed a little like a fading star. "An invasion of gratitude, perhaps," she said with a faint smile. That made Evan laugh, but it was a nervous sound. You can't expect humans to understand this kind of gesture. Ships the size of mountains bowing from the sky. It's not exactly normal around here. Lyra stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "Do you regret helping me?" Evan froze. The question hit deeper than he expected. "No," he said quietly. "I just don't understand why it matters this much to you. I didn't save a princess. I just gave shoes to someone who needed them." Lyra tilted her head, her silvery hair catching the soft blue light. "That is exactly why it matters. You did not help for reward or power. You helped because it was right. That is what my people forgot." She turned toward the glowing window where the fleet floated like a sea of stars. "Our world has known only hierarchy and fear. Kindness became weakness, but when I met you barefoot and dying, you gave without asking. You changed me, and now my people follow that change." Evan felt his throat tighten. "You make it sound like I did something holy." She looked at him, her eyes glowing softly. "Perhaps you did." Before he could respond, the door behind them opened with a gentle hum. A group of alien figures entered, tall, elegant, their armor engraved with flowing patterns that pulsed faintly with blue light. They stopped a few steps away and knelt in perfect unison. Lyra turned to them. "Rise," she commanded, her voice clear but gentle. They stood, their eyes on Evan. One of them, a warrior with crystal-like markings across his jaw, spoke. "Princess Lyra, the council awaits your word. Shall we proceed with the rite of honor?" Evan frowned. "The what?" Lyra smiled softly. "A ceremony to recognize the bond between two souls that changed fate." Evan blinked. "Wait, hold on. What bond?" The warrior bowed his head slightly. "The act of salvation binds the savior to the saved. It is tradition in our empire to honor such balance. When one gives warmth, the other must return it with loyalty eternal." Evan's heart skipped. That's a bit much, don't you think?" Lyra turned to him, her eyes serious now. "It is not just tradition, it is truth. You saved me. Now in the eyes of my people, you are part of our line. They will listen to your words as they do to mine." He stared at her in shock. "You're saying I'm, what, some kind of royal now?" Lyra's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "A symbol, perhaps. A reminder. My fleet kneels because of you, Evan. They see in you what they lost long ago." The words echoed in his mind. He wanted to laugh, but the weight in his chest wouldn't let him. He thought about the people on Earth, his co-workers, his little apartment, his old life that suddenly felt like a dream. How could a man like him stand beside an alien princess and talk about fleets and honor? The warriors motioned for him to follow. As they walked through the ship's corridors, the walls changed color, shifting from blue to gold. Strange symbols glowed along the sides, stories written in light. Lyra explained quietly, "These walls remember. They record every moment worth keeping." Evan touched one of the glowing patterns. To his surprise, the wall responded, showing the scene of that cold night. The snow, the streetlight, and him kneeling before her with the shoes. He felt the air leave his lungs. "You recorded that?" Lyra nodded gently. "The moment you gave warmth became a part of us." When they entered the main chamber, Evan gasped. The room was vast, with a circular platform surrounded by floating crystals. The light shimmered like starlight falling into water. At the center, a beam of golden energy descended from above. Lyra gestured for him to step forward. "Place your hand in the light." He hesitated. "What happens if I do?" "You will see what we see," she said softly. Evan took a deep breath and placed his hand inside the beam. Immediately, images flooded his mind. Cities made of silver towers, alien children playing under twin suns, fleets sailing through nebulae, and then the memory of Lyra, barefoot, crying in the snow. He saw himself through her eyes, a stranger offering warmth, not fear. When the vision faded, he stood trembling. Lyra looked at him quietly. "Now you understand why we bow." He met her gaze, his voice low. "You didn't need to. Kindness doesn't ask for thanks." Lyra smiled gently. That is why it must be remembered. Outside, the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, and the alien ships glowed brighter, like mirrors catching sunlight. For the first time in history, an entire armada honored a single act of human compassion, and Evan, standing in the center of that light, realized something deep and unshakable. He hadn't just given away his shoes. He had given the galaxy hope. The chamber lights dimmed as the alien fleet outside began to move again, their vast forms gliding silently across the horizon. Evan stood beside Lyra, his reflection rippling in the crystal floor. He could feel the hum of the ship deep in his chest, a rhythm that seemed to match his heartbeat. Everything around him felt unreal. The alien technology, the glowing walls, the idea that an entire civilization now honored a simple act of kindness. Lyra watched him with calm eyes. "Your world is trembling," she said softly. "They see our ships and think of conquest. They do not understand peace shown through strength." Evan sighed, rubbing his forehead. "They're scared, Lyra. When humans see power, they prepare for war. They can't believe anyone would bow instead of attack." Her gaze lowered slightly. "And yet, you believed in me when I was powerless." That made him pause. The truth was simple, he hadn't thought about it. That night in the snow, he didn't see a princess or an alien or even a threat. He saw someone cold and afraid. Maybe that was the only difference between fear and compassion, seeing a person instead of a problem. Before he could reply, the ship shook slightly, a low vibration echoing through the floor. The alien guards at the entrance looked alert. One of them touched a glowing sigil on his wrist. "Princess, incoming signal," he said. "A human fleet is mobilizing near your location. Their weapons are charged." Evan's blood ran cold. No, they wouldn't." The guard turned toward him, his tone calm but grave. "They fear what they do not understand. We expected this." Lyra's expression remained unreadable, but her eyes flashed with faint light. "Prepare to respond, but no aggression," she ordered. "They must not think we came to fight." Evan grabbed her arm. "If they see even one wrong move, they'll attack." "You can't risk that." She turned to him. "Then you must speak for us." He blinked. "What?" Lyra stepped closer, her voice steady and full of quiet strength. "Your people will not listen to me, but they will listen to you, the one who gave warmth. The fleet will transmit your message to the entire world." Evan felt his chest tighten. The idea of speaking to all of humanity, and to an alien armada, was overwhelming. "I'm not a leader," he whispered. Lyra smiled faintly. "Leaders do not begin as leaders. They begin as people who choose compassion when others turn away." The ship's walls shifted, forming a vast viewing window that looked down at the ocean below. In the distance, dozens of human warships glimmered, tiny compared to the alien vessels, but armed and ready. The alien fleet above held position, their energy fields shimmering like halos. Evan stood before the glowing console. His hands trembled. Lyra placed hers gently over his. "Speak, Evan of Earth." He took a shaky breath, then began. "This is Evan Carter. I know you're all scared, I am too. But these ships aren't here to conquer us. They're here because of a mistake I made that turned out to be something good. I met someone who was lost, cold, and alone. I helped her. That's all. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know she was part of something this big. But I do know one thing. Kindness doesn't belong to just one species. It's universal." His voice grew stronger. "You don't need to aim your weapons. You don't need to fear what you don't understand. These beings came to thank us, to thank you. Maybe for once we can meet someone from the stars without fighting." The silence that followed felt endless. Then, one by one, the human ships lowered their weapons. The tension in the air melted like ice under sunlight. Across the world, screens flickered with his image. His voice carried through cities, stations, and spaceports. The world watched as a mechanic from Earth stood beside an alien princess, speaking about kindness while two fleets, the greatest forces known to either species, stood motionless in peace. Lyra turned to him, her eyes bright. "You have done more than save me, Evan. You have saved the meaning of peace itself." He laughed weakly, the sound shaking with emotion. "You give me too much credit." She shook her head gently. "No, you remind us what we all forget, that compassion is not weakness." Outside, the alien ships began to ascend higher, their light spreading like dawn across the clouds. They formed a vast ring of brilliance, encircling Earth in a halo of pale gold. Every person who looked up that morning saw it. a promise written in light. Evan stood by the window watching in silence. He wasn't a soldier, a king, or a hero. He was just a man who had shared his shoes on a cold night. But now, because of that one small act, the stars themselves had chosen to kneel. And as the fleet began to rise into the sky, Lyra whispered beside him, "When your people look up tonight, tell them this: the galaxy remembers kindness." The sun rose slowly over a quiet earth, painting the ocean in gold and silver. The alien fleet that had filled the night sky was gone, vanished without a sound. Only a faint shimmer remained where the ships had hovered, like the echo of a dream that refused to fade. News channels called it a cosmic event. Scientists argued about plasma signatures and gravity waves. But for billions of people who had seen the armada bow, it wasn't science anymore. It was a story, one that no one would ever forget. Evan Carter woke up in his small apartment for the first time in days. The city outside was alive again, children laughing, people walking, no more sirens or fear. He sat by his window looking at the pair of old boots resting on the table. They glowed faintly, still warm, as if holding the memory of that night. The government had begged him to donate them to museums, but he refused. To him, they weren't relics, they were a reminder. He had gone back to work at the repair shop. Life somehow had tried to become normal again. But nothing truly felt the same. Customers came just to see him, strangers whispered his name, and reporters left letters at his door. The man who gave his shoes had become a legend. But Evan didn't feel like a legend. He still made coffee in the same chipped mug, still fixed broken engines, still walked home in the same worn jacket. That night, as he closed the shop, he noticed something unusual. A small light pulsing in the sky far above the clouds. It wasn't a star. It moved too gently for that. He stepped outside, heart quickening. Then, in the middle of the street, a familiar voice echoed in his mind. "Evan of Earth." He turned sharply. The air shimmered, and from that soft light a figure appeared. Lyra. She wasn't glowing like before. Her form was faint like a reflection in glass, but her eyes were the same, calm and full of warmth. "Lyra," he whispered. "I thought you left." She smiled. "I did. But I wanted to see you one last time. My people have returned to the stars to spread what you taught us." Evan shook his head, still unable to believe any of it. "I didn't teach you anything. I just helped someone who needed it." Lyra tilted her head, her silver hair floating softly in the air. "And that is exactly what you taught us. To give without expecting. To see beyond difference." The streetlight flickered. She looked up at it, smiling faintly. "Your world has changed, Evan. Do you know what they call you now?" He shrugged. "A fool, maybe?" Lyra laughed, a sound like soft wind through chimes. "No, they call you the giver of warmth. Your act has reached other worlds. Empires that never spoke now talk of compassion. There is peace in places that once knew only war. You began a spark." Evan stared at her, speechless. "You're saying one small act. Really did all that?" Lyra nodded. "Hope travels faster than light." For a long moment, neither spoke. The night around them was still. Then Evan stepped closer. "So what now? What happens to you?" Her expression grew soft.
"Now I return to where I belong."
"My duty is to guide, to lead, but never to forget. And I won't forget you." Evan smiled faintly. "Then keep my shoes close. You still owe me one pair." Lyra laughed again, a sound that seemed to make the air shimmer. "I have them. They rest in our hall of light. My people kneel before them every dawn, remembering the day we learned the meaning of mercy." The light around her began to fade. Evan's chest tightened. "Will I ever see you again?" Her voice grew softer, distant. "Look to the stars. When they bow, you'll know I am there." And then she was gone, like mist dissolving in morning light. Evan stood there for a long time, staring at the empty space where she had been. Above him, the sky glittered brighter than ever, as if the stars themselves had bent slightly in farewell. Weeks later, a monument appeared in the city square, a glass sculpture shaped like two footprints glowing faint blue. Beneath it was a single line engraved in both human and alien language. "One act of warmth can light the stars." People came from all over to see it. Children left shoes beside it. Travelers bowed their heads. And in quiet moments, when the world fell still, some swore they could hear a faint hum from above, the echo of a promise kept among the stars. Evan never sought fame or fortune. He lived his days quietly, walking the same streets, fixing what was broken and smiling when people thanked him. Because deep down he knew the truth. The universe didn't remember the powerful or the rich. It remembered the kind, and somewhere far beyond the galaxies an alien princess looked to the same stars and whispered, "For the man who gave warmth,